The wind moved across the broken marketplace like a cold whisper. Dust rose from the cracked ground and floated around the empty stalls. The sky above was dark, covered with thick gray clouds that looked like heavy smoke. It was hard to believe that this place was once a busy town full of color and life. Now it felt like a ghost world, silent, ruined, and full of painful memories. A human explorer named Daniel Cross walked slowly between the destroyed shops. His boots made soft crunching sounds on shattered glass and burned metal. He carried a small backpack, a scanner, and a lantern hanging from his belt. The air smelled of ash and old fire. Daniel had traveled many planets before, but something about this place felt different. It felt watched. He paused. A small sound reached his ears like a quiet cry. Not loud, not sharp. Just soft, sad, weak. Daniel turned his head and looked around the ruins. The sound came again, this time a little clearer. It was coming from behind a half-fallen metal gate near an old fruit stall. He moved slowly toward it, his heartbeat speeding up. He didn't know what he would find. A hurt animal? A trapped alien citizen? Or maybe something dangerous? He pushed the gate up with some effort. It scraped the ground loudly and dust fell from the top. When he finally lifted it enough, he saw something small hiding behind the shadows. 2 children, alien children. They sat close together, their thin bodies shaking. Their skin was a soft blue color, but covered in dirt and scratch marks. Their clothes were torn, and their eyes glowing faintly with a silver light looked empty from hunger. When they saw Daniel, they froze like frightened animals. Daniel slowly knelt down. "It's okay," he said in a calm voice. "I won't hurt you." The children did not answer. One hid behind the other, gripping tightly like they might lose each other at any moment. Daniel felt something heavy in his chest. Something like sadness and anger at whoever let them suffer like this. He reached into his bag and took out 2 small food bars. They were meant for emergencies, but this situation felt more important than any emergency he had ever faced. He placed the food bars gently on the ground and pushed them toward the children. At first, they didn't move. Then the smaller child looked at the food with wide, shaking eyes. Hunger won over fear. Slowly, painfully slowly, the child crawled forward and grabbed the food bar. Then the second child followed. Within moments, both began eating, tears running down their cheeks. They ate fast, almost too fast, as if they hadn't eaten in days. Daniel watched quietly, his jaw tight. "What happened to you two?" he whispered, even though he knew they might not answer. But the children did not speak. Not yet. They only looked at him with tired, shining eyes that had seen too much pain for their young age. Then something strange happened. The ground under Daniel's feet vibrated softly. It felt like a heartbeat. A giant heartbeat deep under the earth. The air around him changed, becoming warmer and heavier. Daniel looked around, confused. The children suddenly stopped eating. Their small bodies went stiff. Fear appeared in their glowing eyes. The older child grabbed Daniel's arm suddenly and whispered, "Hide. She's coming." Daniel frowned. "Who's coming?" But the child did not answer. They only pressed their finger to their lips and pointed toward the mountains far away, their hands shaking. Daniel felt a sudden chill on his skin. A strange energy moved in the air, something powerful, something ancient. It felt like a force watching him from very far away, but close enough to send a warning. He looked back at the children. They were staring at the sky now, trembling. Daniel swallowed. Who were these children? Why were they alone? Why did they fear someone so much? And who was she? Before Daniel could ask again, a loud, distant roar echoed across the broken town. It sounded like a ship. No, not a ship. Something else. Something alive. The children grabbed each other tightly. The ground shook again. Daniel stood up, confused and alert. He knew one thing now. Feeding these children was not a simple act of kindness. Something bigger was happening. Something dangerous, and he had just stepped into the center of it. He looked at the children. Then at the dark mountains far away. He had no idea that these two hungry alien children belonged to the most powerful woman in the entire galaxy, and that he was now part of a story that would change everything. Daniel stood completely still. The cold wind brushed past him, but he barely felt it. His eyes stayed on the two alien children crouched behind the broken gate. Their small bodies were stiff, like they were listening to something he couldn't hear. The older child, the girl, slowly looked up at Daniel with wide silver eyes. Her voice came out in a shaky whisper. "She will be angry." Daniel blinked. Who are you talking about?" But the girl didn't explain. Instead, she pointed toward the mountains again, those tall, sharp, dark mountains covered in thick clouds. There was something strange about that place. It felt like the mountains were hiding something. Something alive. The boy grabbed the girl's hand and hid behind her again, his tiny fingers shaking. Daniel could tell they wanted to run, but they were too weak to move fast. Daniel crouched to their level. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not your enemy." The girl stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched his wrist. Her fingers were cold, but Daniel felt a warm pulse go through his arm. A moment later, a glowing symbol appeared on her skin, bright, silver, and shaped like a rising star. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "What is that?" The girl pulled her hand back quickly, trying to hide the mark. But Daniel had already seen it. He knew enough alien languages to understand that this was no normal symbol. It was a royal mark. A sign of high blood. A sign of someone important. But why would two starving children have a royal mark? Daniel didn't get a chance to think about it anymore. A loud clicking sound echoed in the distance. Daniel's head snapped toward the sound. He pulled the children behind a broken wall and crouched low. His heart beat fast. His breathing slowed. 3 alien soldiers walked into the ruins, wearing tall silver armor that glowed faintly. Their faces were hidden behind masks with red lights. They carried scanners that beeped every few seconds. One soldier stopped and tapped his wrist device. The heirs were last seen. "Here," the soldier said in a deep electronic voice. Daniel felt the children freeze beside him. "Heirs?" The girl pulled Daniel's sleeve urgently. "Please, don't let them take us." Daniel's pulse grew even faster. He didn't know who the children were. He didn't know what danger he was stepping into. But the fear in their eyes made his choice clear. He put a finger on his lips. "Stay quiet." The soldiers continued searching, moving slowly across the broken marketplace. Their scanners flickered with red lines, sweeping over the ground and fallen stalls. Daniel stayed as still as stone. One soldier kicked a pile of debris. Another scanned the fallen gate. The third one stopped, suddenly stiff. Daniel felt sweat form on his forehead. Had they found something? The soldier raised his scanner toward the area where Daniel was hiding. The girl grabbed Daniel's hand in silent panic, her small fingers digging into his skin. Daniel breathed out slowly and whispered, "Stay behind me, no matter what." The soldier stepped closer. One more step, and he would see them. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed from the far side of the ruins. The ground trembled and dust rose into the air. The soldiers exchanged quick signals. "Sector C breach." One shouted, "Move!" All 3 soldiers ran toward the explosion, their armor flashing in the dim light. Daniel watched them disappear behind a row of burned buildings. Only when their footsteps faded did he let out a slow breath. The children looked up at him, their eyes full of fear and relief. Daniel stood and checked the direction where the key soldiers had gone. He didn't understand the whole story, but he understood enough. Someone was hunting these children. Someone dangerous. Someone powerful. Daniel knelt near them again. "Why do they want you?" The girl looked down. "They want to use us," she whispered. "To hurt our mother." Daniel felt a chill run through him. "Who is your mother?" The girl didn't answer with words. Instead, she touched her glowing symbol again. The mark brightened for a moment, casting a faint silver light on the ruined ground. Daniel stared at the symbol. A royal mark. A hunted child. A mother someone wanted to control. The pieces were coming together, but not enough. That he stood up. "We have to move now." He picked up the boy, who was too weak to walk fast. The girl followed close behind, holding Daniel's jacket with trembling hands. As they left the ruined marketplace, Daniel kept looking at the mountains. The children feared something there. The soldiers feared something there. Even the ground seemed to tremble when those mountains were mentioned. Whatever was waiting in that direction, it was connected to the children, and he had the feeling he was about to meet it very soon. Daniel moved fast through the shattered streets, carrying the younger boy in his arms, while the girl walked close beside him. The cold wind pushed dust into their faces, but Daniel did not stop. Every broken wall, every fallen tower, every empty alley felt like a possible danger. He knew the soldiers would return. He knew they would not stop searching. The boy held tightly to Daniel's jacket, his small hands shaking with fear. The girl kept looking behind them, her glowing silver eyes scanning the shadows. "Are they coming?" Daniel whispered. The girl nodded slowly. "They always come." Daniel tightened his grip on the boy and picked up his pace. His boots splashed through small puddles of machine oil and stepped over broken cables. The street was filled with smoke and silent machines frozen in time. The whole place felt like it was waiting for something terrible to happen. Then a sudden sound cut through the air. Bzzzzz. Daniel froze. A drone, a scouting drone, hovered above the old marketplace behind them. Its red scanner swept across rooftops and burned buildings like a searching eye. The girl pulled Daniel's sleeve sharply. "They found our trail," she whispered. Daniel's heart pounded. He moved faster, guiding the children behind an overturned metal truck. He crouched low and waited, holding his breath. The drone floated forward slowly, making soft metallic echoes. Its red light flickered on and off, scanning everything. For a moment, it pointed straight at Daniel's hiding place. The girl held her breath. The boy hid his face in Daniel's chest. The red light moved away. Daniel exhaled quietly. They were safe for now. He signaled the girl to follow him. They moved deeper into the ruins, slipping between narrow paths formed by collapsed buildings. Daniel listened carefully for footsteps or engines, but then he heard something else. Voices. Low voices. Armored voices. Soldier voices. Daniel pressed the children against the remains of a cracked metal wall. He peeked around the edge. 3 soldiers walked through the alley, looking tense. Their scanners shook in their hands as they spoke. Her heirs escaped. "If we fail again, the Queen will destroy us. We must capture them alive. Anyone helping them must be killed." Daniel felt the girl's small hand squeeze his arm. He looked down. Her face was pale, her eyes full of deep fear. The soldiers continued walking, and Daniel quietly backed away, leading the children in the opposite direction. When they were far enough, Daniel whispered, "You said something earlier about your mother. Who is she?" The girl did not answer. Instead, she looked down and whispered one single word: danger. Daniel wanted to ask more, but there was no time. A sudden metallic clang echoed above them as a drone crashed into a wall. The soldiers shouted orders. They had spotted the children's energy trail. Daniel felt adrenaline shoot through him. "Run!" he said. He grabbed the girl's hand and started running. The boy clung to Daniel's neck as he leapt over fallen stones and broken beams. The soldiers' footsteps grew louder behind them. The chase had begun. Daniel zigzagged through tight alleys. He heard the soldiers firing, tracking shots, blue streaks of light hitting the ground behind him. One shot exploded so close that the shockwave threw dust into his hair. The girl pointed ahead. "Left, left! Go left!" Daniel turned sharply. A metal bridge lay half-broken across a cracked ditch. The girl ran across first, and Daniel followed with the boy in his arms. Behind them, the soldiers reached the bridge, but they were too heavy. The old metal snapped under their armor. One soldier fell through, shouting in surprise. The other two struggled to pull him out. Daniel didn't stop to watch. He kept running. Soon they reached an open square with a giant fallen statue. The statue's head lay crushed on the ground, its eyes still glowing faintly. Strange symbols were carved on its chest. The girl touched the symbols with trembling fingers. "This place remembers her," she whispered. Daniel looked at the symbols and frowned. The same shape. The same silver glow. It matched the mark on the girl's skin. He realized something important. These children were not just royal. They were heirs of someone legendary, but who? A sudden sharp whistle pierced the air. Daniel turned. More soldiers poured into the square. Drones circled above. They were completely surrounded. Daniel stepped in front of the children, ready to fight even though he knew he had no chance. But then, a low rumble shook the ground. The air became warm. Dust lifted from the floor like it was floating. The girl whispered, "She is coming." Daniel's heart raced. Was it their mother? Was it someone worse? The soldiers stepped back nervously, looking into the sky. Daniel looked too. A red glow appeared far above the ruins, growing brighter and brighter until it covered the clouds. Something powerful was approaching. Something unstoppable. Daniel held the children close. He had escaped the soldiers. But now he was about to meet the force they feared the most. The red glow in the sky grew brighter and brighter, but Daniel did not wait to see what was coming. He grabbed the girl's hand, lifted the boy in his arms again, and ran toward the nearest cover he could find. A narrow passage behind the fallen statue. The ruined city shook with every distant pulse of energy. Even the air felt heavier. The children kept looking over their shoulders, their glowing eyes full of fear and something else. Something like recognition. Daniel didn't understand what they knew. But he knew one thing clearly. Whatever was approaching was far worse than the soldiers. He followed the girl through a tight path between two collapsed buildings. The metal creaked above them, threatening to fall. Dust filled the air, making it harder to breathe. But Daniel did not slow down. "Where are we going?" he asked, panting. The girl pointed straight ahead with trembling fingers. "A safe place. Old place. Made before the war." Daniel didn't ask anything more. He trusted her instincts now. These children had survived things he couldn't imagine. After a few more minutes of running, they reached a quiet area far from the soldier patrols. It was a barren field with broken machines half buried in the ground. At the far end stood a jagged mountain wall. The girl touched the rock with her small hand. At first, nothing happened. Then the stone shifted. A thin line of white light appeared across the surface. The entire wall slowly opened like a giant sliding door. Daniel stared in shock. You can open this?" The girl nodded. "My mother built it long ago. For us." The boy tugged Daniel's shirt urgently. "Inside, please." Daniel didn't hesitate. He stepped into the dark opening. As soon as all three were inside, the stone wall closed behind them, sealing the cave with a soft hum. Inside, everything was silent, deep, old, and untouched by the chaos outside. Daniel raised his lantern and looked around. The cave was far larger than he expected. Smooth stone walls curved around them like an ancient tunnel. Strange silver patterns were carved into the surfaces, glowing softly when the girl walked near them. "It reacts to you," Daniel whispered. The girl nodded. "It knows us." Daniel carried the boy to a flat rock and gently set him down. The boy breathed slowly, exhausted. The girl sat beside him and placed her hand on his forehead. A soft silver glow formed around her fingers, calming the boy. Daniel had seen many alien abilities before, but none like this. There was no fear in her eyes now, only sadness and strength. A deep silence lived inside the cave. It felt safe, too safe, like a place meant only for a specific bloodline. Daniel looked deeper into the tunnel and saw carvings everywhere. They showed an alien woman standing in front of crowds, energy swirling around her. Her hands glowed brightly, and her eyes shone like twin suns. He stepped closer, confused. The woman in the carving looked familiar. He turned to the girl. "Who is she?" The girl hesitated, then walked to him. She placed her glowing hand on the carving. Instantly, the silver lines lit up across the entire wall. The energy moved like flowing water, making the whole cave brighten. The girl looked up at Daniel. "That is our mother." Daniel froze. The powerful figure carved on the wall. The woman who commanded storms and armies. The one enemy soldiers feared more than death. Her mother? These children belonged to her. Before Daniel could speak, the ground shook violently. The cave lights flickered. Dust fell from the ceiling. The boy cried out, scared again. Daniel grabbed the children. "What's happening?" The girl's voice was small. "She is searching for us." Daniel's heart tightened. "How close is she?" "Very close." Then another tremor ran through the earth, stronger than before. A deep rumbling noise echoed through the tunnel. Daniel felt the energy in the air change. Like something enormous and powerful had just landed outside the mountain. The girl held the boy tightly. "She thinks we are in danger. That is why she is coming fast." Daniel stepped backward, trembling. He could feel it now too, something approaching the cave entrance. Something thick with raw power, something that made even the walls vibrate. He whispered, "Is she dangerous?" The girl did not answer with words. She simply looked at Daniel with sad, knowing eyes. "Only when she is angry." Another roar echoed from outside. The entrance of the cave glowed red. Daniel realized something important, something terrifying. He had protected the children, but he had no idea how their mother would react to finding them with a human. He stood in front of them, unsure if he was about to be saved or destroyed. The cave trembled like a living creature. Dust fell from the ceiling in soft gray clouds. Daniel stood in front of the children, his body tense, his heart beating so fast it hurt. He had no weapon strong enough, no armor, no plan. All he had were his own arms. And a very small hope. Outside the cave, something massive landed. The ground jumped beneath Daniel's feet. The boy cried out and hid behind his sister. A loud roar shook the mountain, deep, angry, and powerful. A roar that did not sound human. The girl grabbed Daniel's sleeve with trembling fingers. "She is here," she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. "Your mother?" The girl nodded once. "Yes. But hunters are here too." As if answering her words, a faint metallic clink echoed from deeper inside the cave. Daniel spun around. Shadows moved at the far end of the tunnel. Hunters, not simple soldiers this time, elite trackers. Their armor was darker, sharper. Their masks had purple lights instead of red. They moved silently, their rifles raised, stepping with deadly focus. 3, 5 of them. Daniel grabbed the boy and pushed both children behind a large stone. He whispered, "Stay down. Stay silent." The girl nodded and held her brother close. The hunters spread out like wolves. Their scanners beeped softly, picking up the children's energy. They knew the heirs were close. One hunter touched his ear and whispered into his comm, "Targets inside the royal tunnel. Prepare extraction." Daniel felt his body fill with panic. If they took the children, their mother would tear the entire planet apart searching for them. He couldn't let that happen. He ducked behind a stone pillar as a laser. Blast sliced the air where he had been standing a second ago. The flash burned the rock. The hunters were not trying to capture him alive. Daniel took a deep breath. Fear shook his hands, but he forced himself to stay steady. He needed to do something. Anything. He grabbed a broken metal bar lying on the ground. It wasn't much, but it was heavy. He waited for the nearest hunter to walk by. And when the man stepped close, Daniel swung the metal bar with all the strength he had. Clang! The bar slammed into the hunter's helmet. The soldier stumbled but didn't fall. Instead, the hunter shoved Daniel back with brutal force. Daniel flew across the tunnel and hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his ribs. But he stood again. He had no choice. The hunters moved toward the children now. Their purple lights flashed. Their steps were slow, confident, cold. The girl wrapped her arms around the boy, her eyes wide with terror. Daniel ran again, even though his legs shook. He grabbed a loose crystal shard from the floor and threw it at a hunter's visor. The shard cracked the mask, making the hunter roar in pain. Another hunter fired a stun blast. The blue bolt slammed into Daniel's shoulder. Fire burst through his muscles. He fell on one knee, breathing hard. But he didn't stop. He crawled forward, placing himself between the hunters and the children. "Run away from me," he whispered to the children. "Keep going deeper." The girl shook her head. "No. We stay with you." The hunters raised their rifles. Purple lights glowed at the ends of the barrels. Daniel closed his eyes for a second. This would be the end. But then, the ground exploded. A blast of red energy shot through the cave entrance, throwing rocks everywhere. The shockwave knocked Daniel and the hunters off their feet. Light burst across the walls like fire. A tall figure stepped through the burning dust. She was enormous, at least 7 feet tall, with glowing red eyes sharp like blades. Her body shined with golden armor covered in ancient symbols. Energy swirled around her like living flames. Her voice echoed through the mountain, powerful and furious. "You dare hunt my children?" The hunters froze. The temperature dropped. The energy in the air became unbearable. Daniel felt it too. His lungs burned. His legs shook. The air around this woman was not meant for normal beings. She raised her hand. Wave of raw red power exploded forward. Hunters flew through the air like dry leaves. Their armor cracked. Their masks shattered. Some hit the walls so hard the stone itself broke. Daniel grabbed the children and shielded them as debris fell around them. The cave roared like a storm when the dust settled. The hunters lay unconscious or unmoving, and she stood there, the woman from the carvings. The children ran to her, crying, "Mother!" Daniel remained on one knee, breath shaking, as her glowing eyes slowly turned toward him. He didn't know if she would thank him or destroy him for touching her children. The cave was filled with smoke and broken stone. The air smelled of burnt metal. Every sound echoed like it came from the heart of a storm. Daniel stayed on one knee, breathing hard, his vision blurry. He could barely move after the hits he took. But he kept the children close, ready to protect them again if needed. The tall glowing woman stepped forward slowly, each step shaking the ground. Her golden armor shone like fire. Her red eyes burned like twin suns. A wave of raw energy flowed around her body, so deep and alive that Daniel felt it in his bones. The girl and boy ran straight to her. "Mother! Mother!" The woman knelt and wrapped both children in her arms. Her expression changed from deadly anger to relief and love. She touched their faces gently, checking for wounds, whispering words in a language Daniel did not understand. For a moment, she forgot everything else. She forgot the fallen hunters. She forgot the ruined cave. She forgot Daniel, but then she slowly stood up again, still keeping one hand on her children's shoulders. Her glowing eyes finally turned toward Daniel. The heat of her gaze was like standing in front of a sun. Instinct told Daniel to look away. He didn't. He forced himself to meet her eyes. She took one step forward. Daniel felt the energy push against his chest, almost like an invisible hand holding him down. His heartbeat raced. His fingers trembled. He did not know what she would do. She studied him in deep silence, her expression unreadable. Then her voice finally came soft, but filled with unimaginable power. Human. Why are my children with you? Her voice echoed through the cave like thunder trapped inside stone. Daniel swallowed, feeling the weight of every word. I found them starving, he said, trying to speak clearly. They were hiding. They needed help. The woman's eyes narrowed slightly, glowing brighter. You fed them. I did. You protected them from the hunters. Yes, you fought my enemies with your bare hands. Her voice cracked with something deeper pain. Fear, something only a mother could feel. Daniel nodded once. I didn't want them to be hurt. Silence. Her red eyes dimmed only slightly, but Daniel felt the change like a sudden warm breeze after a cold storm. She stepped closer. The air around her pulsed with power, but her anger slowly began to lower. My children. Do they trust you? She asked without looking at them. The girl answered in a soft voice. He saved us, Mother. He did not let them take us. The boy nodded, hiding behind Daniel's arm. That moment froze the entire cave. The most powerful woman in the galaxy saw her children standing close to a human, protecting him, trusting him, choosing him. The woman's expression shifted again. Her anger fell. Her fire softened. She lowered herself slightly so her glowing eyes were level with Daniel's face. You stand between my children and death, she said quietly. And you do not run from me. Daniel's voice shook a little. I didn't know if I should. A faint smile, small, almost invisible, touched the corner of her lips. Her energy stopped pressing on him. The air became easier to breathe. She raised her hand. Slowly. Daniel tensed, but she did not attack. She placed her palm gently against his forehead. Her power flowed into him, not as pain, but as warmth. Images flashed in her mind and his, her children starving. Hunter ships chasing them. Daniel giving food. Daniel fighting. Daniel shielding them with his own body, even when he was injured. Daniel refusing to leave them. She saw everything. When she pulled her hand back, her eyes had changed. They were no longer burning with anger. They were calm, deep, respectful. My name, she said slowly, is Queen Syraxa. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had heard that name. Everyone in the galaxy knew it. Queen Syraxa, the strongest telekinetic in existence. The ruler of the Crimson Dominion. The destroyer of fleets. A legend, a threat, a protector. And he had been carrying her children. Daniel lowered his head, unsure what to say. Syraxa stepped closer and bowed her head slightly, just enough that the gesture became unmistakable. You saved the heirs of my throne, she said. For that, human Daniel, I owe you a life debt. Daniel's eyes widened. A queen like her did not owe anything to anyone. The entire cave grew quiet. Then a sudden sound echoed from outside. A new fleet arriving. Hunters returning with reinforcements. Dozens of them. Syraxa lifted her head, her eyes glowing bright again. But this time, the fire in them was not for Daniel. It was for everyone coming to hurt her children. She whispered, "Stay behind me." And the mountain began to shake as she stepped forward, ready to unleash her true power. The mountain shook with heavy force as Queen Syraxa stepped toward the cave entrance. The red glow around her grew brighter and brighter, like a rising sun trapped inside her armor. Her children held each other behind Daniel, their small hands gripping tightly. Daniel stood in front of them, breathing hard, unsure if he should fight, run, or simply trust her. Outside the cave, the sky burned with red and purple lights. A fleet of hunter ships hovered over the ruins like dark shadows. Their engines growled, and their weapons glowed with angry blue fire. Hundreds of armored soldiers landed on the ground in perfect formation. One ship a huge one sent a booming message through loudspeakers. Surrender the heirs, or witness destruction. The queen stepped into the open. The ruin-filled valley fell silent. Her red eyes blazed like fire. Her armor glowed with living energy. Power rolled off her in waves so strong the dust around her floated in the air. A hunter commander stepped forward, his armor sharp and black. "You cannot fight us all, Syraxa," he shouted. "We have the numbers. We have technology. We have prepared for your powers." Syraxa tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Then she whispered one simple word. "No." She raised her hand. The air broke. A storm of pure energy erupted from her body, a wave so strong it cracked the ground and split the air like glass. Soldiers flew backward, ships shook in the sky, rocks shattered into dust. Daniel shielded the children as the shockwave passed through the valley. The hunters tried to fire their weapons, but the queen moved like a force of nature. Bullets bent away from her. Lasers dissolved before reaching her armor. Every shot failed. She lifted both hands now, her power glowing like two suns. With a simple gesture, she pulled enemy soldiers off their feet, freezing them in midair. Another gesture, and their weapons melted like soft metal. The commander screamed, "Fall back! Fall back!" The soldiers tried to escape, but Syraxa slammed her foot into the ground. A red barrier exploded outward, trapping every soldier inside a giant dome of energy. There was no escape. She walked forward slowly, her cape flowing behind her like flames. "You followed my children," she said, her voice deep with fury. "You hunted them like animals. You hurt them." She raised her hand high, and a beam of red light lit the entire valley. Daniel felt fear, not for himself, but for what she could do. Her power could wipe the whole planet clean if she wished. Then the girl ran out from the cave. "Mother!" "Stop!" she cried. Syraxa froze. Her hand trembled slightly. The boy held Daniel's hand as he came forward, watching his mother with wide, frightened eyes. "Mother," the girl said again, softer this time. "He is here. He helped us. We are safe." Syraxa slowly lowered her arm. Her breath shook not from weakness, but from emotion. She turned toward Daniel. He stood there, covered in dust, bruised, shaking from exhaustion. Yet he faced her without stepping back. "You risked your life," Syraxa said quietly. "You fought soldiers with bare hands. You protected what is most precious to me." Daniel swallowed. "I just did what anyone should do." Syraxa shook her head gently. "No, not anyone. Many would have left them. Many would have feared them. But you did not." She stepped closer. Her power dimmed, the red glow sinking softly into her armor. "My people will know your name," she said. "The galaxy will know what you did." The children ran to Daniel and hugged him tightly. Their small glowing eyes looked up at him with trust and love. Daniel felt tears sting his eyes, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Syraxa watched her children clinging to him. Slowly, she knelt on one knee before Daniel, the most powerful woman in the galaxy. Bowing, the valley fell silent. "No one has ever protected my heirs before," she said. "For this, I offer you a place beside us. You may live among my people. You may travel with us as a guardian, a friend, or whatever path you choose." Daniel stood frozen. He never wanted reward. He never expected honor. He only wanted the children to be safe, but looking into their eyes, he knew the truth. They needed him. And somewhere deep inside, he needed them too. He nodded slowly. "I'll stay with them, as long as they need me." Syraxa rose to her full height. Her children held Daniel's hands. The sky above began to clear. The hunters lay defeated. The mountain grew quiet. The air softened. And Daniel Cross, an ordinary human, walked beside the most powerful family in the galaxy, not because of strength, not because of weapons, but because of kindness, a kindness that changed the fate of worlds.